What's up? What's happening on a Monday? It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And I just realized, Anthony, we forgot our water bottle in the prep studio. That's okay. We'll get it after the break. We'll just kind of clear the mouth best we can to get through this first segment as Anthony takes a sip of water, eyeing me rudely, but also genuinely hilariously. And then you coughed. You choked on your water. You choked on your own joke.
I did.
But you want to know what, Anthony? It's
What?
okay because you did it with your mic off.
Yes.
And coughing into a mic is not allowed.
Finable offense.
I did say that, I heard, apparently, I was referenced on the previous program, the Chris Russell Show. Russell said that there was a point somewhere in the show where he said, "Oh, I know that Hoffman would disagree with me, and if he walks by this window, he'll start screaming at me." And I didn't hear him say that. But apparently I walked past the window 5 seconds later, and he thought that I was going to come in and start yelling at it, and I just kept on walking.
That's actually funny.
It is funny. I wish I had heard him. Arguing with Russell is one of my favorite things.
Did he tell you what the statement was?
Yes, that I would argue for some. And here's where I'm actually upset at Chris. He put a very dumb take on my plate. He projected a bad take onto me. I'm not saying I don't have bad takes. I'm just saying I want to earn them, which is that somehow the end of NBA games, close games specifically, are not too long. Yeah, they're way too long. Duh. Oh, I love video reviews that take 4 minutes. Yeah, sign me up. Sports, go sports. That's what we all watch for. No. Get out of here with that. Yeah. And then I told him about the WNBA rule that he was not familiar with, the reset timeout.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think the NBA should adopt immediately.
Yep.
If you're unfamiliar, the W has experimented this year with what they call the reset timeout. So you call timeout, you make a little X with your hands to signal, hey, this is our reset timeout. You can advance the ball just like on a timeout, and you can make substitutions, but you don't get to huddle up and draw up a play. It literally just, they go, okay, you called the reset timeout, side out of bounds. Any subs? Nope. Okay, continue. And you move on. So I think it's great. It saves 2-3 minutes of time on a full timeout.
Yep.
Speeds up the end of games. Now we just got to get replay down to what it should be in all sports, which is if you can't decide in 30 seconds if the call was wrong, then it wasn't a clear and obvious error, and thus the thing that you are trying to review is not worth further reviewing. That should be the replay rule in all sports. I'll maybe go to 45. But if you can't decide in 45 seconds if it's the call needs to be changed, then it was not a clear and obvious error. That doesn't mean that you can't, if you need longer, if you're like, oh, yeah, we messed up. If you need more tape to respot the ball or to fix the clock, you can get a little bit of extra time to properly administer, but you should come out and be like, change the call. Back into the little boothy booth. Okay, we got 6 on the shot clock. Ball's out of bounds. It's a sign out of bounds. We got to reset the game clock to 38 seconds. All right. We've overturned the call. There are 38 seconds left on the game clock. 17 on the shot clock. It'll be white ball out of bounds. Team retains their timeout. They have 2 remaining. Can you whistle, Anthony? Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, we can do that. Can you do the whistle with your fingers?
I can't. I've tried.
I don't understand how that works.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right. Feels like you're just supposed to blow air out. Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't it. Or some people go this one.
Yeah. No, nothing.
Yeah.
I feel like mine had a little more pitch to it than yours, maybe because I'm closer to being a dad. I feel like that's a dad whistle.
Maybe we're not supposed to be blowing out. We're supposed to be.
No.
That's
You have to blow. You have to exhale.
What about that whistle then?
You have to.
I'm not blowing out.
Wait, what do you do yours again? Oh, your second air.
Yeah.
Wow, that's stout. Maybe hold on. Try it with the finger whistle.
Nah.
No, you're just blowing air in over your fingers like a
need
doofus.
More practice, more reps.
So if anybody has the key on how you're supposed to whistle with your fingers, you can tweet us at Craig Hoffman, at Anthony Haney 3. And that's not where we thought we would start the show today.
No.
But we did. Here's where we thought we would start the show today. And we'll take a break and come back and do it for real. Because this is a really cool idea that ESPN's doing. It's a list season for everybody. And ESPN has embarked on this every once in a while. Most famously, they did in the year 2000 their Sports Century, where they ranked the top, I think it was 50 athletes of the 20th century, Babe Ruth and Michael Jordan and Muhammad Ali, all in there, etc. And so what they did this time, and / are doing, we haven't ultimately gotten the full list yet, but we're going to make a prediction on who's at the top next, is they're doing the top 100 athletes of the 2000s. And so if you're like me, you've been getting ESPN alerts like on their app all day. But Dave Schoenfeld, who's a baseball writer, he headed up the thing. But there was over 70,000 contributors. I think, 7,000 contributors worldwide. So you've got people who cover, cricket for ESPN International that are like, hey, I got a cricketer over here. Do they call them cricketers?
That I don't know.
We go a cricket player. A cricketer. If you know if it's a cricketer or not, you can also tweet the show. Point is, they polled a lot of people. Anthony and I, so here, I didn't realize when I first planned this segment that the full list is not going to be out until the end of the week. So they've released the first 25 today, but that actually made it better for us because what I wanted to do was try to predict the top 5 and then see what happens, or see compare our list to the actual list. So we'll be able to compare our actual list. It just is going to later in the week. But Anthony and I will reveal our top 5 athletes of the 21st century next, and we'll also give you a couple of the key names off ESPN's first 25. That's next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It's a loaded show coming up for you. 4:30 debut of a countdown we're going to do from now until training camp. We're counting down over the next 2 weeks the top 10 commanders for the 2024 season. So top 10 most important commanders for the 2024 season every single day at 4:30. So definitely make sure that you are locked in. And if you miss it, we'll obviously podcast that. And so you'll have a chance to go through, and we'll do that every day. Also, starting Wednesday, we are going to do position group previews. So we're going to ask at 6 o'clock, we're going to do a pick six and ask 6 key questions about every single position group for the Commanders that you are fully prepared for training camp. That'll start Wednesday. Here on actually, Anthony, you know what we didn't do? We didn't put specialists on that list. And I don't want to disrespect the specialists. So really, we could start tomorrow and do 9.
Okay, I'm down.
Okay. Did you also? We were trying to think of a 6th question because we decided to do it at 6 o'clock, and then we can't do a pick 6 if there's no 6th question. Did you think of one?
Yeah, I have a 6th question, but I think it's also going to depend on the position group.
Oh, okay. Maybe we could ask a wild card question every time, something that's different for every position group.
Yeah.
It's a harder lift for us. We have to be creative.
Yeah.
But you want to know what? That's what they pay us for. Yeah. Our creativity. Also, Copa America, disaster last night in Miami. Not before the game got started. Literally before the game got started. Pablo Maurer was there from The Athletic. He's going to join us coming up at 5 p.m. Right now, though, this has been blowing up my phone all day, and I'm now just angsty with anticipation for the rest of this list. But ESPN has dropped their top 100 athletes of the 21st century. So top 100 of the 2000s. And we won't find out who the top 25 are, nevertheless the top 5, until later in the week. They released today athletes 100 through 76. There are names like Chris Paul, Cheryl Swoops, etc. In there. So it's a fun list. It's a really fun exercise. But, Anthony, I think it's fun for us to guess who are the top 10 going to be later this week. So here, I was stalling a little bit there to pull up the list. So 100 to 76. I'm just going to read off the names with very, very little commentary. Charles Woodson's 100. Ed Reed is 99. Connor McDavid, who we can't believe has already been playing for 9 seasons in the NHL, he's at 98. Virat Kohli, cricket, 97. Darrell Revis, 96. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, 95. Ronaldinho, 94. Rory McIlroy, 93. Pedro, 92. And with a guy like Pedro, I'll remind you that some of his best years, I mean, he was still awesome post-2000, obviously, that 2004 Red Sox team that won the World Series, but he had some of his magical years in the 90s, which is why he's not higher. Aaron Rodgers, 91. Asia Wilson already at 90 and climbing, obviously. Annika Sorenstam, 89. Doc Holliday, Baseball Hall of Famer, who tragically passed in a plane accident in 2017. He's at 88. God, he was so good. Ronaldo, the Brazilian version of Ronaldo, not Ronaldo as in Cristiano Ronaldo. He is at 87. Venus Williams at 86. Kawhi at 85. Feels a little high, to be honest. Lauren Jackson, 84. Chris Paul, 83. Kohei Uchimura, the gymnast, is 82. Cheryl Swoops, who had a dominant run in the late 90s and then continued into the 2000s, well into the 2000s, actually. She's at 81. Andy Murray, present. He's 80th. Bryce Harper at 79. And that definitely got your that seemed to raise your eyebrows a little bit.
It did, just because this guy hasn't won a championship. But Chris Paul is also on the list, so
yep, that's
I
true.
guess it ain't that
I mean,
bad.
he was a high school star who came into the league and lived up to the hype.
Yeah.
He's a 2-time MVP, Rookie of the Year, 7-time All-Star, 2022 NLCS MVP. The home run derby here at Nats Park in 2018 was incredible. I mean, he's real good. He's one of the best baseball players, certainly, of the last. It's going to be like him, Trout. We'll see where Shohei's on there. A couple other guys, but yeah. Bernard Hopkins. I mean, I guess like still Jeter in them. That era of player will still be on this list. Anyway, Bernard Hopkins, 78. Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, 77. And then George St. Pierre, MMA fighter, is 76. So that's what's been released so far. In terms of the methodology here, just so we're all on the same page as Anthony and I do our list here, experts in individual sports were asked to vote to rank the top athletes in their sport since January 1st, 2000. No accomplishments before this date were to be considered. Those votes pared down pools in each sport to lists of 10 to 25 athletes each, which constituted the overall candidate pool for the top athletes of the 21st century so far. Each voter was presented 2 randomly selected names and asked to pick which one has had the better career in the 21st century. Across repeated randomized head-to-head matchups, more than 70,000 votes were cast at this stage, and using an ELO rating system, the list was pared down from 262 to 100. That list was then evaluated by a panel of experts for any inconsistencies or oversights, resulting in the top 100 ranking seen here. AKA Anthony, they took this thing seriously. So, with that, this is what we think is the top 5. Not our prediction for their top 5. These are our top 5 of the 21st century. Who do you have? Actually, Anthony, we have the same athlete at number 5. Michael Phelps.
Yes.
Most decorated Olympian in that time. An absolutely insane swimmer in multiple stroke disciplines. Dominant in some. Still the greatest in others. Multiple-time world record holder. And remember, I kind of jokingly a couple weeks ago was like, I wonder if I can use AI to figure out who's the most dominant athlete. And like use their times, because this was right after Sydney McLaughlin set another world record. By the way, preview of weekend in review. Did you see what Femke Bol did this weekend?
I did not.
She broke 51 in the 400 hurdles. She hit 50.95, which is still 0.3 behind Sydney world record. But like,
oh my gosh,
Sydney's gonna have to run in the final.
Yeah,
she's not gonna be able to jog home.
Nope.
Like they're gonna be close at the line. Sydney's probably still going to win.
Hold on. So, Femke she can compete in the 400-meter hurdles?
Yeah.
She didn't do it at the U.S. trials.
She's Dutch, which is why she didn't compete at the U.S. trials. Because she's not American, and it's the U.S.
Femke
trials.
Bol. I'm thinking of
Lilla.
I was thinking of somebody
Anna
else.
Cockrell.
Yeah, never mind.
No, Femke Bol.
Oh, my God.
But anyway, after Sydney did what she did at the McLaughlin-Leroney did what she did at the trials, I was like, okay, if we look at the races and see who won by the biggest percent based off their race, who's the most dominant, and Chat GPT spit back at me Michael Phelps, the 200 butterfly, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was that. It was like that, because I remember some of his most iconic races are the ones that he wins by that much, and he just found a way to win all the time. But Phelps was number 5 for both of us. Number 4 for both of, so you're number 4. I actually don't. He'd probably be number 6 for me, and I can't believe that this is actually true. But I have Tiger Woods down at number 6. You have him at number 4.
Yes, I have him at number 4. 15 professional major golf championships. I think that speaks for itself. Also, what he did for the game. I think when you have people that revolutionize the game, I think they have to be, in the top of, whatever list category like we're talking about. Like LeBron James always going to be in the top 5 of any kind of conversation you have just because of what he did. Michael Jordan, same thing. Muhammad Ali for boxing. So
for sure.
I think it just differs.
So I stuck mine to a little bit more on the field, and then there's also, I would say there's 2 big things that keep me from putting Tiger in the top 5. One, his big coming on to the scene moment is the 97 Masters, which is before the cutoff date.
True.
So he still did his all-time height was the year 2000, 2001. Like that's the peak Tiger Woods when he did he completed the Tiger Slam, and the whole deal was, I believe, 2000 and 2001. So like most of his dominance is in the 21st century. But it also ended so fast and has been such a disaster the last 10, 15 years. And like, yes, there are some incredible highs of him competing at advanced ages, etc. But like the off-the-course scandals, the embarrassment that he's had multiple times, plus you have he didn't dominate for as long. His peak is as dominant as anybody in the history of sports. But if we're talking about greatness and longevity, you look at the other athletes on this list relative to their sports and how long careers are, and I think that they belong higher. Okay. Again, this is not to say like Tiger Woods is, he's the 30th best athlete. No, he's 6 on a list of 5 here for me, but just we're splitting hairs because that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
All the other ones we agree upon what one. So you have Tiger 4, you have Serena 3. I have LeBron 4, Serena 3. And I just think Serena was more consistently dominant within her sport. And part of that is like she has a little bit more control over that, right? Like if LeBron had better teams in the first stint he had with the Cavs, would he be higher because he'd have actually 8 championships versus just the 4 that he's got? Maybe. But Serena was just like, she was the best and winning at such an obscene rate for so long. But I also totally get putting LeBron higher, and you do. You have LeBron at 2.
Yeah.
All-time leading scorer, etc. The guy that I have that you don't in your top 5 is Usain Bolt. We both have Brady at 1.
Yeah.
Most important position in team sports. Was able to win in a team sport at an unprecedented level, set every freaking record basically along the way. Like Brady's insane. And he did it for so long. Bolt, I have in the top 5 because he is the fastest man who's ever, like nobody in the history of the planet has run faster than Usain Bolt. That matters to me. And he had 3, 100, 200, 4x100 in 2 Olympics, and then I think he had the 100, 200, and then he pulled his hamstring in his final race as an Olympian, so he didn't wind up getting the triple. But still, so thoroughly dominant, winning races, running away, celebrating in the last 20 meters while setting world records. Like I've got Usain Bolt. When I think of like greatest athletes, what is more athletic than running the 100 meters faster than anyone who's ever lived? So I've got Bolt in my top 5. All right, when we get back. And we'll definitely talk about this more later in the week as more of the list comes out, and we'll see if any Washington athletes make it. We can do maybe a top 5 Washington athletes of the 21st century. That could be really fun. So we'll have some more fun with this as the week goes. But next, we're going to do this every single day at 4:30. Who are the top 10 most important commanders of the 2024 season? We'll reveal number 10 next on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming on YouTube as well at the Team 980, and our off-season coverage of the NFL is presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile, and you can get tons of benefits and still save on every plan versus AT&T and Verizon. Anthony, let's try that again.
Run it back, Craig.
Run it back. Our off-season football coverage is presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile, and you can get tons of benefits and still save on every plan versus AT&T and Verizon. Use their savings calculator to find out how at T-Mobile.com/switch.
That sounded so much better.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
America. So every day at 4:30, we are going to count down for the next 10 days the 10 most important Washington Commanders for the 2024 season. The parameters are very, very simple. Who are the most important players? AKA, who has the ability to change the outcome of the season the most? So some of these are going to be a little more high risk, high reward players where, hey, if this goes great, this is really important. Hey, if this goes badly, it may not matter very much. Some of these are going to be more of true do or die type of players. Your ceiling, your floor, it all matters. Your positional value, it all matters. And so with that, I will say Sam Cosmi is the honorable mention who gets to be number 11 in a list of 10. Not because if we did best commanders, he might be number 1. But it's most important, and positionally, to quote Jay Gruden, he's a guard. So that is the parameters. That is how this works. Anthony, any other setup or further questions that need to be addressed before we get going?
I think you covered all bases.
Then let's hit the music. Come on, music. I hit you. There we go. And with that, our top 10 commanders of the 2024 NFL season begins with
number 10.
Dorrance Armstrong. The 27-year-old pass rusher signed from Dallas in the offseason gets the nod, Anthony, at number 10. He is their best edge player and a defense that we're going to find out if it can play with him as their best edge player. Obviously, this is a huge, huge year for Armstrong, who was really, really good last year behind Micah Parsons and behind DeMarcus Lawrence, but it's different when you're the featured guy, when you're number 1. I also think it's important to point out, they're going to play inside out on this defense. They're going to try to create matchups for guys like John Allen and Daron Payne. Frankie Louvu is going to have a huge impact potentially as a pass rusher. They're very much hoping that Jamin Davis can essentially be converted to a pass rusher. And I would say in the best version of this season, Dorrance Armstrong actually becomes less important because one of those guys, specifically Jamin, Louvu is going to play, but if Jamin becomes a legitimate edge who's got real pass rush juice, well, that takes the pressure off of everybody else, and especially Dorrance Armstrong. But Armstrong is no slouch. This dude last year had 8 sacks. That's not nothing, especially in a backup role. PFF actually credited him with 9. They count their sacks a little differently than the official totals that the NFL uses. But he had 35 pressures, according to PFF, 22 hurries, 4 quarterbacks hits, batted down a ball. He's got to be more impactful in the run game, although I think some of that is going to be him playing starter snaps. He only had 20 tackles last year. You'd obviously hope that goes up. He's had more in the past, but he played also last year 468 snaps, and he was only played 168 snaps against the run. So he played his other 300 snaps and in passing situations, 290 as a pass rush, and then he actually dropped back in coverage 10 times in zone blitz situations, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, the previous 2 years in Dallas, he played, 468 was last year. He played 618, 535 snaps. So this is a dude who's played with a little bit bigger load. But last year was his best year. Graded out on PFF, again, whatever PFF grades are worth, it's the best we got. 69.6 for the season. 58-1 as a run defender. His career high was back in 2021 where he graded out at 67.5. And as a pass rusher last year, though, he graded out at 69.7, which is a pretty good number. That's a green grade for them. Had some monster games. That first game of the season against the Cowboys, he was against the Giants, where they just absolutely bamboozled them. He was awesome. He had a 93 grade in that game, 6 tackles, 2 sacks, and then obviously slowed down a little bit from there for the rest of the season, but did have a stretch in the middle where he had a sack in 4 straight games. So he can get hot, he can get going a little bit, and they'll obviously need him to do that. So he had the 2-sack game, a 4-sack stretch, and then he had a 3-sack stretch near the end of the year last year, actually to close out the regular season, including one against Washington. And then obviously the playoff game didn't go exactly great for anybody on that Dallas defense, but we don't need to talk about that. So that's the Dorrance Armstrong story in terms of what he was last year, kind of where he comes from. And I think the reason that he's so important, Anthony, for this team is he is the guy who at that position is going to play the most snaps. We know that Dante Fowler? Dante Fowler. I was like, Dexter Fowler is different. Dexter Fowler was a baseball player, and the reason his name is on my mind is because he plays golf with Devontae Adams during Receiver on Netflix, and I watched that episode last night. We're almost done with the series. It's really, really good. But that's why Dexter Fowler was on my mind. Dante Fowler is going to be third down pass rush specialist type. We know that KJ Henry's going to get some snaps there. They would, I think, love for him to emerge. We know that Cleveland Ferrell is going to be big, but he's more of a run stopper edge type. And then we'll see how they rotate guys. But I also think it's worth pointing out that Dorrance Armstrong is big enough and has the body size to play inside and unlock some of that stuff for John Allen, Daron Payne, to potentially line up outside. The positional versatility that we know Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. love in the back end is true on the front end too. And so last year, it's funny, he's lined up the last 3 years exactly 1 snap in the A-gap per PFF, like literally 1 time every single year. But he lines up in the B-gap, once or twice. Actually, I'd say even more than that. Lines up, a couple times a week in the B-gap, 55 snaps last year. Over the tackle, 58, and then outside the tackle, 321. So he's mostly playing, either heads up on the tackle or outside in a true, defensive end positioning. But it tells you sometimes he will kick inside to a 3 technique. Those 55 snaps over the B-gap, a career high last year. He can get out in space a little bit, 31 snaps as a box player. So he lines up as more of like a wide 9 in some of the alignments. And as they play with some of the fronts, you need guys that are versatile that can do that. And while Armstrong is definitely at his best with his hand in the ground and being a traditional DN, he's got the positional versatility to make this defense be what I think they want it to be. So ultimately, that's the Dorrance Armstrong story. That's why he's number 10. I think that there's obviously other guys on that D-line that are more important. There's other guys as pass rushers, Frankie Louvu, you'll see just how high he gets on this list, that are more important. But I think you have to have an edge player in your top 10 most important guys, and he's the guy who's going to play the most of that position, and thus Dorrance Armstrong, Anthony, number 10.
Yeah, I mean, again, as you just said, defensive ends, pass rushers, they're at a premium right now in today's NFL. And the fact that we had 39 sacks last year, which is 26 in the NFL, is sort of kind of unacceptable. And we need, to find an answer to that problem. So I think Dorrance Armstrong, all that he presents, the fact that he had 8.5 sacks in a reserve role last year, I think that's telling. He can get to the quarterback, and I think that's what we're going to need on the defensive side of the ball. We had Montez Sweat leave, we had Chase Young leave, and that's 11.5 sacks already right there. So I think with Dorrance Armstrong, his importance is definitely going to be integral.
Yeah, and the thing is, if teams are going to double John and Daron,
Yep.
your edge guys have to make them pay.
Gotta
and
get
Dorrance Armstrong's good enough to do that. He's got to go out and show it. So our question for you, after we reveal at 4:30 each and every day for the next 2 weeks here on the Hoffman Show, our top 10 most important commanders, is what are your expectations for that player? Don't call in and say, I think this guy's more important. You heard one player on our list, so not doing that. But at 301-230, 0980. What are your expectations for Dorrance Armstrong, our number 10 on our list of the 10 most important commanders coming up in the 2024 season? Give us a call, 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at 5 p.m., Pablo Maurer of The Athletic joins us here on the Hoffman Show to dive into just how the final of one of the world's biggest soccer tournaments turned into a security threat and a absolute disaster. And that matched exactly what the whole entire tournament had been. Pablo with us at 5 p.m. Right now, though, we just revealed
Number 10.
on our list of the top 10 most important commanders for the 2024-2025 season. Dorrance Armstrong is our guy at number 10. Number 9 revealed tomorrow at 4:30. So what are your expectations for Armstrong for the 2024-2025 season? Let's get to the phones, 301-230-0980. Let's go to Gary in Upper Marlboro. Gary, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I think Dorrance is going to give the Commanders exactly what he gave the Cowboys. I think he's a 7.5, 8.5 sack guy. I personally don't think that he moves the needle from what we had last year. Okay, I just think he's a very solid player. I don't disagree with the signing. And what gives me some sort of pause in my and what I'm saying is that Dan Quinn coached him for 2 years and knows exactly what he's getting. So he obviously was impressed with the kid, but I'm not so sure he moves the needle from what we had last year. Other than with Chase Young, Chase was probably a little bit more undisciplined than Dorrance, and Dorrance will probably play more within the confines of the defense and not,
For sure.
Get taken out of the play because he's trying to get a sack and go wide. So there may be an upgrade there, but I'm not so sure he's a better pass rusher than Chase Young. And Dorrance Armstrong was not double teamed by anybody at Dallas. Okay, so he's not going to probably get any double teams here either. But I think he's I think he's an average. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's a 12.5. 13.5 sack guy. I just don't see that being him. And so my expectations is about 7.5, 8.5 sacks and being a good player, being a steady player for the Commanders.
Gary, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. I don't disagree. I think that sack number is probably a little low. Like, I think he probably gets somewhere between 8 and 10. But I also think that, there's a lot more to defensive end than rushing the passer. If I needed one pass rush to win a game, like, I'd rather have Chase Young than Dorrance Armstrong. If I need 60 snaps of production where I'm not going to have a guy jump out of the gap and, like, just going to play good ball, I would definitely take Dorrance Armstrong. And this is the thing, right, is I think Gary makes a good point in there that I don't think Dorrance Armstrong is going to all of a sudden be facing a ton of double teams just because he's the top edge guy here. Those double teams are still going to go to John Allen and Deron Payne inside. The question is then, can Armstrong, with more snaps than he's had, because now he's not a backup, he's a starter, can he contribute bigger production, especially on first and second down? Because I do think, Dante Fowler and Frankie Louvu, like, those guys probably are going to be on the field a little bit more in pass rush situations on third. Does Jamin wind up winning a job as a third down edge player whose job is solely to get out of the pass or get after the pass rusher or the passer in pass rush situations? Like, these are the good, the good problems to have. These are the things that I'm very interested to find out. But I also, the last thing I'll say real quick before we get to another call or two here on Armstrong is it's a good reminder that this is year one of the project, right? Like, it sounds like a shot when Gary's like, I don't think that Dorrance Armstrong's the needle mover. But I think they know that, right? Like, I think Adam Peters looks at Dorrance Armstrong as, like, good player, Dan's familiar. We'll get by with him this year. But next year, hopefully things go really well. We're drafting in the mid-teens, maybe even the late teens, early 20s if things go really, really well. But realistically, we're drafting somewhere between 10 and 20. And we can probably get a pretty darn good pass rusher in that range. Or we trade up because we'll have extra draft capital or whatever they want to do. Like, and they've got cap space. Sometimes pass rushers do hit the open market. So I think that there's a lot of ways that they're going to improve their pass rush in the future. The problem is this is the best they've got right now. But if we're looking at just the 2024 season, that still makes him vitally important. Let's go to Cliff real quick. Cliff, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, what's going on, Craig? Long time no hear.
I've been here, Cliff. I don't know where you've been.
No, that's what I'm talking about. I hadn't been on here in a while. That's what I'm
No,
talking
I appreciate you calling, man. What you got?
The last caller was talking about Chase Young. Chase Young is no longer here now. Let's keep his name out of it. But Dorrance Armstrong, if he's getting starters minutes and starters money, he needs to get at least double-digit sacks. It doesn't have to be 15. If he gets 10 or 11, I'm satisfied. It's his first year here, and I think that defense is going to be aggressive with all them pieces they have. But the key is John Allen, if he's here, and Deron Payne providing that inside pressure up the middle, and I'll sit back and listen.
All right. Thanks, Cliff. John Allen will be here. This camp opens in like 9 days. He's going to be here. Let's go to Ross in Tampa. Ross, I know there's a story that you need to tell that we've been tweeting about over the weekend. We're going to have to save the story for maybe tomorrow, but what you got on Dorrance Armstrong?
Hey, Craig, what's going on, man?
What's up, dude?
Hey, you let me know when you're ready. You just tweet me back, and I'll know when to call in and tell the story.
All right.
But I was telling Anthony, like, you know, when you got two dominant defensive tackles like Payne and Allen, there's always this phrase, more so in a 3-4 defense, but 2 on me, 1 is free. And, you know, I've been watching Dorrance Armstrong once we signed him, and that dude is so quick with his hands. And not only can he do, and I think my expectations is going to be 6.5. I'm going to hold him to 6.5 sacks because I feel like the tackles in between are going to be so preoccupied. He's going to have one-on-one battles that he can win. And he's also a dog on special teams too. But, yeah, Craig, man, what's something that this team, different regime would always do that I was skeptical on is bring in these backups from dominant defenses like we get the Jerron Johnsons of the Seattles or the David Bertans of the Denvers. My expectations are different this time, man, and I do think he's going to at least crack the 6.5 sack mark, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got going, man. He's right. No, and real quick, I don't think this guy's going to crack your top 10, but if I'm mistaken, my apologies. I want to see what Farrell's going to do. He's closer to his hometown. Not sure that's going to have anything to do with much. I want him to, like, use this stop as, like, justification that he was a legitimate 4th overall pick, even though it was a reach. I do think he's got, like, first-round talent.
He's an interesting player. Ross, unfortunately, we're up against it, but we'll definitely be talking later this week. Ross tweeted me, said he has some kind of story about how a strip club manager was yelling at him, and somehow it's related to a segment that we did. So I'm excited to hear what that story is later in the week. Farrell did not crack our top 10, but he's interesting. He's more of just, like, he's a really solid, great run player. Like, he's an edge setter. He plays with violence. He plays with physicality. He's an important guy, but I think from a production standpoint, a pass rush juice/push, Armstrong comes in higher, which is why Armstrong is our number 10. Number 9, we reveal tomorrow at 4:30. Pablo Maurer on the Copa America. Absolute cluster mess. Next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And last night was one of the wildest sporting scenes, and it's really not even sporting adjacent scenes I've ever seen with what went down before the Copa America final in Miami. To talk about that and the larger implications and context of it all, it is time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
And joining us is our pal Pablo Maurer from The Athletic. Pablo, welcome back to the show. I wish we had fun football to talk about. Instead, we're going to talk about CONMEBOL and U.S. soccer coming together for disaster. Who could have ever seen this coming?
Yeah, CONMEBOL might have soccer in that part of the world, I guess, has maybe an interesting reputation. So for sure, it was not entirely unexpected, but still pretty shocking to see.
So, were you actually in Miami last night, or were you consuming this on social media? Because I mean, in some ways, like the social media was almost better, but also eyes on the ground is always nice. So where did you take in all of this mess last night?
Yeah, I covered 7 Copa America games. I was actually covering the third place game in Charlotte on Saturday, so I was back here at home in Bladensburg. It was interesting. Obviously, we had a few people there: Felipe Cardenas, Paul Tenorio, Laura Williamson. A couple of our UK writers were all there. So it was interesting not only to see it through the eyes of social media, but also like through my work Slack,
Right.
and through quasi kind of panicked text messages from colleagues. Some of them, not that any of those people were in any serious imminent danger, but they were close to it. I mean, it's just sort of an insane thing to look at a sea of humanity, look at kids crying, people, passing out from the heat, police overwhelmed. I mean, just total insanity,
I saw a tweet from Mike Ryan, who's the producer for Dan Le Batard's show, who they're down based in Miami, and he goes, I've seen more cops around the stadium for a Bethune-Cookman game than the CONMEBOL final. When, as you covered this tournament, and we've seen, issues with fields and all this kind of stuff. Was this a common theme in terms of security and some of the issues that have gone on here? Obviously, we saw the what happened in the semifinal with Uruguay and Colombia and the family situation. But in terms of fans and what ultimately happened last night, was this something that was coming? Was this something that anybody could have predicted because of a lack of preparation? Or was last night some bizarre confluence of circumstances that obviously could have been prevented, but was more unique than something that had been building?
Look, man, CONMEBOL has screwed this up at every step, and I think it probably just comes down to something as simple as being cheap. I mean, even it's funny as a journalist. I mean, just get used to a certain standard of operation, I guess. In terms of press accommodations, press conference type stuff. I mean, this was one of those things where, there wasn't even, water or coffee in the press box, like that kind of a thing. For example, that is a minor inconvenience for me. I'm using it as a broader example of where corners were cut. CONMEBOL was fully in charge of security for these games. Obviously saw what happened, in the stadium between Colombia and Uruguay. And look, man, there is an element of it's a sporting event. At the end of the day, you're not going to be able to entirely prevent expletives basically from beating the crap out of each other, but you can have security in place to diffuse that situation. You can have security in place to get those people out of there quickly, to protect the players' families, to protect the players. And none of that happened, So I think, it's funny. I mean, you saw in the sort of match day -1 press conference, Emiliano Martinez, who's the goalkeeper for Argentina, said, he was asked if he was worried about security, and he literally said, it's a final, it's hot, people are going to be drinking a little bit more than they probably have been in the past. It's sort of those things where people seem to see it coming, so not surprised at all. The tournament organizers probably weren't even surprised. I don't know how much they care, but it was a disgrace, man. And it's like a very bad look for the United States, frankly, ahead of a World Cup that we're hosting in 2026, along with Mexico and Canada. So a lot of people sort of viewed this as a dress rehearsal for that tournament, and clearly somebody failed here.
So I was going to ask that in a moment, but since we're here, let's go there. Because that is the narrative, right? Is this was supposed to be a dress rehearsal for 2026 and the World Cup. But as you mentioned, this is not a FIFA thing. This is not a CONCACAF thing. This is not a U.S. soccer thing. Fully CONMEBOL, who is the organizing committee for South American countries, for those that are general radio audience, not as locked into the soccer, but are interested because they saw this all unfolding last night. So how fair is it to put this on the U.S./U.S. soccer and any other powers that may be that are going to put on the World Cup versus putting it on CONMEBOL? How fair is the dress rehearsal line?
Yeah, I don't really know, man. But what I would say is that it certainly, and not that any of us doubt this, right, but it certainly reiterates the fact that, like, that element exists in this country. I mean, people are very, very quick to sort of cast an eye on, hooliganism in Europe or issues with stadium violence in Mexico or South America and just paint that out as barbaric, when in reality that stuff exists in the United States, man. I mean, even if it is, at an event that isn't really sort of a traditionally American style thing. I don't know this, but I have a kind of a running theory that CONMEBOL probably just thought, it's the U.S. That kind of stuff doesn't happen here. When in reality, like, of course it does. You know what I mean? Like, look at what happens every time a team from Philadelphia wins anything, or like what happens. It's like you've seen. I mean, I don't want to get hate mail from Philly fans now, but I mean, like, you know what I mean? Or a college team or whatever. I mean, it's just like people have that streak here too. So it was obvious when you look at like the video, just the sea of humanity outside those gates. I mean, I don't know that the cops did. I kind of think they probably did the only thing they could, which is just open the gates, because like it very much seemed to me that A, there was no way that you're going to get those people in an orderly way, and B, somebody's going to get crushed. So I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know how much of this. Again, you can't put it on U.S. soccer. You're not going to put it on, that sort of thing. It does squarely lie at the feet of CONMEBOL. The only thing I would say, though, is, again, like, make no mistake, that stuff is here. And if the World Cup organizers in 2026 don't deal with it and don't adequately prepare, obviously there's just going to be a sort of repeat performance, No,
100%. Pablo Maurer from The Athletic is with us here on the Hoffman Show. I would also imagine that there is a lot of meetings happening at Miami PD, Miami-Dade, whatever other, law enforcement agencies, because I would imagine they probably are like, how did we get put in that situation? And should we have stepped up and done more? You just give them what they asked for. You can only get, ultimately what you're paid to do. But man, that was really, really terrible. And I guess the other question I have to ask, Pablo, is like, why does CONMEBOL not care about this seemingly? Like, why are they so cheap? What's the backstory on that part of this as to, like, it shouldn't be inevitable that at a major tournament final that we're going to just accept that disaster is what we expect. And, like, we can all be horrified, but to go, that's kind of what we expected. Why were we all expecting that?
I mean, one thing I'd say is that this isn't the first time something like this has happened at a Copa America, and it's certainly not the first time something like this has happened at a South American soccer tournament. I don't want to say that there's an element of this in South America that's accepted as normal, because there's not. I mean, even in North America, you see what I was just in Querétaro, Mexico, a year and a half ago, because there was, a massive stadium riot that people nearly died in, and hundreds were injured in. That stuff still happens in this neck of the woods too. But it's, again, I mean, you get the further south you go, the more sort of normalized it is. And I don't know. I mean, it is one of those things where even if CONMEBOL is running this event, even if they were, for example, in charge of the pitches, which were subpar, the security, which was subpar, the everything, which was subpar. I mean, I don't know if you saw the rant that Uruguay's coach Marcelo Bielsa went on. I mean, I was in the room for that, and it was like, it was just one of those things that have been building, and he literally was speaking for, everybody who participated in the tournament. I mean, even journalists in the room probably were like, yes, like, thank you. Like, these fields are a joke. These accommodations are a joke. The scheduling's a joke. So it's just like deplorable, man. I mean, it does seem like it would cost CONMEBOL something, I don't know how eager anybody is going to be to host another Copa America in the United States. I mean, they've done it twice, so the only two times that it's been played outside of South America were both in the U.S. I don't know that you're going to see that again anytime soon. But who knows, man? There's definitely going to be like an autopsy of this. Yeah, I just pitched a story on a staff call today that literally the story was who's to blame. Let's just unpack all this stuff issue by issue and figure out whose responsibility it is. Because sorry to prattle on, but like a lot of the sort of the average fan will probably just assume like, oh, this is on Miami or Dade PD. You know what I mean? When in reality, it's like, no, they're basically like paid by the tournament organizers to be there.
Right.
It's not like they don't have any responsibility to, other than, a base responsibility for public safety to be there. I mean, somebody's got to pay them, so it's just weird, man. The whole thing is crazy.
Yeah, I don't know that fans typically fans understand on a baseline level that when sporting events in general of all types are put on, it's not just like local law enforcement shows up out of the goodness of their heart. Like they're paid to be there. I mean, I remember even going back to being in college and I went to a game. I'm from Greenville, South Carolina, and I went home and I went to a Clemson game. And I remember asking a cop that was like directing traffic, hey, is there any other way out? And he goes, I don't know, man. I'm from Columbia, which is an hour and a half away. And you're just like, well, what the hell are you doing here? How did you wind up in the backwoods of Clemson, South Carolina? This is not a Gamecock game. What are you doing up here? But like they will literally bring in people from different parts of the state, different part of whatever. And so, like you said, it's not, yes, they have a public safety duty, of course, but CONMEBOL clearly did not hire the right people and the right amount of people. The bigger question, I think, Pablo, for the on-the-field stuff, and we will quickly end here, transition on the field by talking about the fields. I do feel like there is a bigger concern moving forward when it comes to the stadiums in the U.S. and hosting finals about the turf at these stadiums, that FIFA will pay a lot more for security, et cetera, and there will be more eyes and all of that. But the fields themselves, how concerning is that for the 2026 World Cup? And who ultimately is in charge for what was laid down at these stadiums across the U.S.?
I mean, deeply concerning. The fields and the stadiums, obviously, the responsibility of the stadiums and municipalities who run them. But and this is something Bielsa said. He said, I'm translating here. He basically said, the North Americans don't promise you a perfect field. They say, yeah, sure, we'll throw down grass over turf. Whatever, a week before the game, and that's what you're going to get. And if you looked at another one of his criticisms was that the rows of sod didn't line up. I mean, there's like balls going across the penalty area that bounce 2 or 3 times, because they keep hitting seams in the turf, right? And there's also the dimensions of the fields. I mean, the fields were literally below the minimum standard, like the minimum recommended standard for a major tournament, right? They were just above the minimum. And my view is it might actually get worse, the World Cup. FIFA has crazy requirements for the amount of space that they need around the field, for broadcast equipment, for sponsors, stuff, that kind of stuff. And a lot of these NFL stadiums are actually having to remove rows of seats, like some of the first rows temporarily just to host these games, But I mean, those fields might be just as narrow, Now, that having been said, I mean, it's the World Cup, man. They'll probably have these fields in there, a month ahead of time or something like that. Can't see this being an issue, but, it's just one of those things, man. Messi went down off the ball last night, and, by most accounts, it seems like it was probably he had just been playing injured because he'd been challenged earlier in the half. But, I mean, first thing I thought was, that's turf got him. And that's a disgrace, right? It robs the audience of the best player in the history of the game in his last major international final. It robs fans in the United States, probably until August, of seeing him in MLS, all because the surface was subpar. And that stadium is one that's natural grass normally, So
right.
It's just stupid, man. I mean, it was I hate to get animated about it, but the entire tournament was such a disgrace, and it shouldn't have been,
Yeah.
That it's hard not to get angry about it, honestly,
No, it's worth anger, Pablo. I'm right there with you. I'm trying to do my best to just ask you questions and let your expertise come through here and ask them in a non-leading way. because Sports Talk Radio, as you know, is a bastion of journalism. That's what we do here. But
I don't think there's ever been any anger on Sports Talk Radio either.
No, never, none.
This is new for you guys. I know, but
our audience is like, whoa, settle down, guy. No, but like
normally when you have anger and you're talking about soccer, it's one of your listeners saying, "Stop talking about soccer." I'm sure.
Well, there is that. And by the way, I will say, you mentioned that Miami is normally natural grass. There was like a half an episode of Hard Knocks last year dedicated to the fields. And how their whole process, it was actually, it's actually was very cool. And they bring the fields in from outside of Miami. Like they have a whole field, if you will. And, it was very, very thorough. So the fact that field last night was so terrible, considering how much money and time and everything they spend on this, as documented in Hard Knocks, is wild. So the last thing, Pablo, eventually they played. An hour after they were supposed to start, they played. They played a lot longer because the game went in extra time. Argentina wins. As you mentioned, it's the last major tournament likely for Messi. We'll see if he still plays in 2026. But certainly the last for Angel Di Maria, his running mate for nearly 20 years in Argentina. What did it mean for Argentina for them to win this disaster of a tournament?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was a fitting end for them. I mean, I was talking to Felipe, my colleague, about this, and both of us were sort of kind of lamenting the fact that Colombia lost, if only because of all the teams that both of us saw in the tournament. I was noting Felipe's Colombian, but I mean, beyond that, they were the most entertaining. They played the most sort of proactive, creative, forward-thinking soccer. The thing about Argentina is they just don't lose. They find ways to win games. They will absorb pressure very well. They're really sound defensively, and that's sort of like what you saw last night. I mean, they were outplayed for stretches, but in the end they came through, and it is a massive, massive thing. I mean, I think we all saw, if you watched the game, you saw Messi after coming out hurt, just basically sobbing on the bench. I mean, that sort of shows you what it meant to him. It is a huge, huge thing for Argentina. It's a huge thing, obviously, for Angel Di Maria. It's a huge thing for Messi. It's a huge thing for the Argentine public. It's a huge thing for the Argentine community in the United States. People sometimes forget that outside of the World Cup and the European Championship, this is, the biggest soccer thing in the world. It's certainly a huge deal, obviously, especially given the fact they just won the World Cup. It's sort of like they're obviously in the midst of a pretty dominant run.
No doubt. Pablo, great stuff. Really appreciate it. Are you going to Audi tomorrow for the women's national team game send-off?
I am.
All right, I will see you there, my friend.
Looking forward to it. All right, man. Take care.
Excellent. That's Pablo Maurer, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. And tomorrow, we will hopefully be talking to one of Pablo's colleagues who covers women's soccer for The Athletic ahead of the U.S. women's national team game. Their last game before the Olympics tomorrow at Audi Field. I got some other stuff planned as well. So we will have a fun one tomorrow here on the show for all of the football fans, if you will. Who are listening. For the American football fans amongst you, the Commanders faithful, 4:30 today and every day for the next 2 weeks, we reveal one of our top 10 Commanders for the 2024 season in terms of importance. Today, number 10, Dorrance Armstrong. If you missed it, definitely check the podcast. Tomorrow, we reveal number 9. Still to come, Wizards. They got off to a shaky start in some stretches, but a really impressive opener. The second game was a little shakier in Summer League. Glenn Consor's out there in Las Vegas. We'll talk to him coming up at 6 p.m. We still have the weekend in the WNBA that we'll review. And also, we have a fun activity around the ESPN's latest quarterback rankings at 6:15. So a lot still to come here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Listen nationwide, anywhere. You go on vacation this summer but still want to listen to the show, there you go. Just fire up the old Odyssey app in your hotel room, in the car, listen via Bluetooth. We're compatible with Apple CarPlay, which is nice. You can rewind, you can listen live, you can check out the podcast, your favorite shows. Hopefully it's ours, all due respect, et cetera, et cetera. So fire up that Odyssey app and do not miss a moment of this here show. All right, Anthony, it is time for our WNBA Weekend in Review. A couple of key points to hit. And the biggest story of the WNBA weekend is Angel Reese's streak is mercifully over. And I say mercifully just because I think it got to a point that was kind of embarrassing. Now, do I know that the Angel Reese stands are going to come after me for that? Yeah, I do. Do I care? Not really. Because at some point as a hooper, as someone who just loves the game, as someone who is like, hey, can we have a little respect for the competition, for the point of this, which is to win games and be competitive? When someone is going after an individual record that hard, no matter what the score of the game is, that's not really what the point of a record is. The point of a record is you accomplish something no one else has done before by playing the game and playing it not to achieve that record directly, but it just happens because you're that great. And that's not to say that what Angel Reese accomplished, if her streak of double-doubles had ended at 13 instead of 16 when it ultimately did, wouldn't have been amazing. And she's still having an unbelievable rookie year. She's a great player. Her rebounding is insane. Yes, there are a high number of them coming off her own misses, but she still gets them, which if you're going to miss the shots is better than not getting them. And she's still making huge impact defensive plays, and she's grabbing big defensive boards and all of this stuff. She plays really tough. She sets a tone. But eventually, like, a double-double is kind of an arbitrary number, especially. Like, we have such an obsession with round numbers that's so silly. Like, what's actually better? 28 points, 9 rebounds, or 10 and 10? 28 and 9, obviously. Or even 4 points, or especially 8 points and 15 rebounds, or 10 and 10? 8 and 15, but one's a double-double. Ooh! And so, like, I think it's just especially silly, the record that she was chasing, where multiple times in this last couple times the streak got extended, late in games, she's hunting getting across 10 points. Like, there's a game earlier last week where they're up 7, shot clock's off. The correct thing to do there is just dribble out the clock. And instead, Angel Reese is posting up as hard as she can, draws a foul, gets to the free throw line, and then gets her double-double that way because she crosses the 10-point threshold. Then, against New York, she is 2 points short late in the game. And they, again, like, if you're trying to compete late, you're trying to hit a 3. Nope, they try to get her the ball. And New York, with like 30 seconds left in this game, quadruple teams her to be like, hell no. You're not doing this nonsense anymore. And I laughed, Anthony, because I thought it was funny that New York was like, okay, well, now that we've won the thing that we're actually competing for, if you want to play this game, we'll beat you at this game too. And Angel Reese, like, throws the ball up over her head, which I don't know whether that was a pass out of the quadruple team or a shot. But either way, I thought it was hilarious. I'm glad the streak is over. Not because I'm like, I don't want Angel Reese to ever have success. But, like, if you're artificially extending the streak like that, I don't think you deserve to have the streak. And I don't care whether it's my favorite player of all time or whatever. Like, it just, that's a no from me, dog, and I'm glad the streak is over.
Yeah, it's sort of kind of like, I think what you're getting at, she lacks some integrity for the game to an extent.
The way that she chased this record would, yes.
Yeah.
That's the thing that bugs me. Because if she had naturally extended, even in losses, right? I'm not saying it has to come, oh, the record doesn't count if it comes. No. If in a loss, she had played her butt off and wound up with 12 and 12, okay, streak lives on. But to be 1 rebound or 2 points short at the end of a game, when in any other situation you dribble out the clock, Or you would be, hey, we're late in a game. We need to try to get up some threes here to cut into a deficit. And instead, you're feeding your post player so that she can try to get a double-double? No, you play basketball, and if you break records, you break records. You don't play basketball to explicitly break records over trying to play the game. And that's what bugged me about this thing going on. If she had extended it, I'd be like, yo, let's go, Angel. Like, this is incredible. Congrats. You deserve it. Because she is playing really well. And that's the thing, right? Is she really playing that much worse because the streak is over and she had 8 and 10 instead of 10 and 10? No. Like, she had a bad game against New York. She was 3 for 12 from the field. It was awful. But, like, that happens to rookies. That happens to veterans at her position in this league. It's hard. But the obsession with the round numbers and the record at the expense of the game was multiple games in a row was a little bit more than annoying.
Yeah, and I think it's the multiple games in a row. Like, the first time, like, all right, she did it.
Yeah, we'll give you a pass.
Yeah, but 2, 3, 4 games?
Especially when you're
it's
up,
crazy.
right? Hey, if you've won the game, to the victor go the spoils.
Yeah.
So, like, did I think that it was a little cheap when she extended it when they were up on whoever that was last week?
Atlanta Dream.
Yeah, when they were up on Atlanta and she, like, force feeds the post. Like, okay, you want to know what? You secured the win. You get to go chase it.
Yeah.
But when you're down and that stuff is happening and they feed you the ball like 8 possessions in a row when they should be trying to hunt threes,
yeah,
and then you're down against New York, and the only reason that you're trying to get that, like, instead of trying to extend the game for real, you're trying to throw up a shot against a quadruple team? Nah.
Yeah.
Nah, we're done here. It's gotta end.
Yeah. And I don't know, because this also led to, I was actually having a discussion with one of my friends about Angel Reese and this streak, and we got to talking about the WNBA rookie race. And it's more so just, I think it just goes back to, like, the point you were making about, you know, her shot diet and, you know, not being able to convert layups where she's, you know, 3 for 12, 5 for 17 and things of that nature. And you look at, you know, Caitlin Clark, and she's out here efficient stat lines. She is still turning the ball over, but, like, everything else that she's doing, the rebound and the assisting is just, I don't know. I think I appreciate that a little bit more than, I mean, again, what Angel did is definitely to be appreciated, but I think when you talk about the race and who deserves to win it, I think it's a different.
They play different positions.
Yeah.
They're asked to do very different things, going stat for stat. But I think we're at a point where like, we're talking about the Rookie of the Year race. You look at what Caitlin's asked to do and what Angel's asked to do, who is doing their job better. That is your best argument for Angel, that Angel is fulfilling her role better than Caitlin is, because Caitlin, despite what she is doing from a production standpoint, is still turning the ball over a lot. As a point guard, you'd like her to manage the game a little bit better. But I think that is getting closer and closer, if not Caitlin has already passed. And the degree of difficulty for what Clark is being asked to do is way higher than what Reese is trying to do.
Yeah.
Like, Reese is, hey, can you make shots inside 8 feet and rebound your face off? She's rebounding her face off literally better than anyone else in the league. She leads the league in rebounding. Make shots within 8 feet? Yikes, man. I'd have to check the numbers, but, like, she was floating around 40%, and then she went 3 for 12. So she's pushing being below 40% with no shots basically outside of 8 feet. She's taken a couple of threes recently that haven't gone down, and that's good to see her. It's actually a positive sign, in my opinion, like, to try to extend her range a little bit. And she's shown in workouts and stuff that she can hit some of those shots, but doing it in a game is a different story. Meanwhile, we've reached the Caitlin Clark portion of the proceedings that I referenced last week, which is her bad games are still, like, if I told you she had 17 points and 6 assists, you're going to be like, yeah, she had a bad night. But she actually struggled a little bit against Minnesota, but the Fever able to storm back with a 14-point plus fourth quarter, 28-14, they won the quarter as they storm back against the Lynx. Clark, 17 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, but she does have 6 turnovers, and a lot of those were her trying to force it. You know, she's still trying to figure out what passes she can make, what passes she can't. She's already set, it's July, the WNBA record for turnovers. She is just absolutely spilling the ball all over the place, even though there are some where it's miscommunication or teammates drop passes and whatever. She's still got too many that are within her control. But she matches that with, in this game, an even number of assists, and normally it's double. Her assist, despite having the turnover she has, her assist to turnover ratio is still really good. But they got Aaliyah Boston going to this game, 17 points, 16 boards. And so the Fever beat the Minnesota Lynx. And then there was the game that I was at yesterday, Anthony, where the Mystics came out on absolute fire in the first quarter. Like 31 points, they went bananas in the first quarter. Ariel Atkins had, I think, 17 in the first quarter. She wound up with a career high 36. A was awesome yesterday. 6 of 9 from 3. Shatori Kimbrough was on fire. She hit 2 of 3 from deep, and those came early. But the Mystics ultimately just kind of collapse offensively from there. They don't cross 20 points again in any of the other quarters. And it was a big part because the Aces they tweaked their defensive intensity up, and they just started playing harder. And 2, they did something that I thought was really interesting that I'm curious if other teams repeat more, and certainly some other teams have already done this season, is they basically treated Stephanie Dolson as a guard, positionally. So when it came to their schematics in terms of how they switch things, like you say, we're going to switch this 1 through 5, we're going to switch this 1 through 4, and you don't want your guards to get stuck on another team's center because then that center goes down to the post. Well, they basically said, we don't think Dolson's a post threat. What we can't let her do is handle the ball with space out top because she's such a good passer because she can see over everybody, and she's one of the best three-point shooters in the league. And so they put Alicia Clark, a friend of the show, on her. They put Chelsea Gray on her. Like, they started putting guards on Steph and really pressuring her so where she wasn't comfortable handling the ball. And that caused some turnovers. There's some times they tried to punish it, and they tried to get her on the post, and the Aces were really, really good in rotation of being like, okay, as soon as she catches it, here comes a guard from the backside to either block a shot or get a strip or deflection. So they just made some changes that were really, really smart, got some things going offensively, and Asia Wilson was ridiculous. She had 28 points, 17 rebounds. Just to watch her stack that up over the course of the game was pretty phenomenal. So Mystics, another tough one as they continue to float towards the bottom of the standings. The Aces, meanwhile, since Chelsea Gray has been back, are on an absolute tear. They've won 9 of their last 10. I think it's actually 11 of their last 12, including 4 in a row, and sit atop the Western Conference standings with their win and the Indiana win over Minnesota. Tomorrow, Anthony and I are taking a field trip, WNBA style. It's camp day. So 11:30 at Capital One Arena. It'll be me, Anthony, and 10,000 screaming kids as the Mercury take on the Mystics.
Yes, sir.
That's a rough one for the Mercury. West Coast team having to play an 11:30 a.m. start.
Ooh.
Yikes.
Aren't they? Yeah, because isn't it 8:30 and?
Yeah, 8:30 Pacific time.
Yeah.
Whew. Diana Taurasi's like, it's fine. I'm old. I wake up at 5 in the morning. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, DT. It's an old person joke because
if she goes off tomorrow,
there aren't many. Look, Anthony, I'm at an age where there just aren't that many athletes who are still playing that are older than me.
Oh, dang.
So the fact that DT's like legit older than me, not just like barely.
Yeah.
Got to get it in where I can, bro.
Yeah.
On the jokes. No, she'll be just fine. But yeah, tomorrow, 11:30, that one on Monumental Sports Network. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, the rest of the weekend in review. And then coming up at 6 p.m., Glenn Consor talks Wizards basketball with us as he is got his eye on Summer League. That's still to come here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up 6 p.m., got our guy Glenn Consor talking. Do we know if Glenn's in Vegas? Or is he just joining us from here after watching all the games?
I definitely think he's joining us from here.
Oh, okay.
But I'll confirm.
Okay. It's just what kind of heat do you like? Do you like the dry heat of Las Vegas or the swamp hell of this place?
Somebody asked me that the other day when I was in Dallas, because Dallas has dry heat down there, man.
Yeah. It's not quite as dry as Vegas, but it's a lot drier than here.
And I think I might have to go with the dry heat, to be honest. I hate the humidity that's here in D.C. because you really get the sweating, and I feel like I got to take a shower like every 30 seconds. Down in Dallas, it was more so I was sweating, but like it wasn't like a sticky kind of sweating.
Yeah, no, you're just like, this is hot. You feel like you are – there's a certain point where it kind of switches, where like the dry heat just becomes unbearable. It's crippling almost. Where you feel like you just walked into just a blaster. Like you walked underneath a giant hand dryer. Like the old school ones, not the new fancy Dyson ones where you're like, oh, this feels kind of nice as I move my hand slowly through the thing. Like, no, the ones that are like, we will blast you with hot air.
Yeah.
Or an old school like hotel hair dryer. And you just step out into it and you're like, oh, ow. Like I literally remember being in Vegas last year. We went to visit Alicia at the end of June, early July. And it was so hot in Vegas that you walked outside and you felt like you were melting, which also led to the dumbest Uber I've ever been in my life, which was we got an Uber that was a Jeep Wrangler with a soft top in Vegas in July.
Not the life y'all deserve, man.
Yeah, put on the hard top and crank up the AC, lady. What are we doing? Not cool.
Yeah.
Not cool. Literally not cool. It was funny because we saw, obviously, with the Aces being here, we saw Alicia. We were talking to her after the game yesterday, and she's like, yeah, I hate the humidity because she's got curly hair.
Yeah.
And so for her, she's like, oh, I washed my hair, dried it, felt all good. Stepped outside this morning to get coffee. Poof. Yeah. Brutal. Yeah, it's nasty out there. We ran this weekend, and we're out like before 9 a.m. Still 80 degrees, just dripping. Just like it, you run, and if you're a dude or a lady, and you're wearing a shirt, you eventually just wind up running with a weight vest on. It
stinks, man.
It was
stinks.
Brutal. Actually, Anthony, dumb thing I did this weekend. Speaking of, so Sunday morning, Rachel and I go running together, and she asked me, she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna run upstairs real quick. Can you prep my water bottle for me?" Because she has a water bottle that she puts, like, she's got like a waste thing that she puts a water bottle on. I was like, yeah. And so typically we don't just do regular water. We do water with the electrolytes in it. And so in my head, I was like, oh, I got to ask her which she want, one brand or the other on the electrolytes. And I just forgot. And so she wound up with just a water bottle. And so we're like 20 minutes into the run, and she finally goes to take a sip, and she goes, oh, what did you put in that? And I go, nothing. And as the nothing is coming out of my mouth, I realize that is the problem. Because especially that was the water bottle that typically has electrolytes in it, and so the water doesn't taste quite like, it's got a little tinge of flavor, and her palate's a little sensitive, by her own admission. And so she's like, and she squirted me with the water bottle, which honestly felt great.
I'm about to
which
say.
is why I didn't realize that she was actually mad at me at first, because I was like, oh, that was cute and playful, and that felt good. We're just funny. Oh, you're pissed. Son of a gun. I'm in trouble.
That's hilarious.
Whoops.
But it probably felt good.
It did, but the anxiety
Oh.
of your wife being mad at you for the last 20 minutes of your run, that didn't feel very good.
Nah.
Not worth the water squeeze.
Nah.
Men, do make sure you don't mess up the thing that you don't do people favors and then do a bad job with the favor.
Yeah.
That's the moral of that story. If you agree to do something, do a good job. And if you're not going to do a good job, just say no. Just say no. That was That was fun. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony, anything fun, noteworthy from your weekend?
So my birthday was still being celebrated this weekend.
That was like 2 weeks ago at this point.
I know. My parents, instead of doing something the day before my birthday, decided to do it July 12th, 13th, one of those days. The 13th, Saturday.
Saturday was the 13th.
Yeah, Saturday. So yeah, we went down to the point, and my mom actually didn't know there was a soccer game here. So I'm like, yeah, Mom, it's probably going to be very hard to get all the way back to the point because the point is literally right behind Audi Field. But we ended up being able to navigate it, and it was a pretty good outing. And then after that, went home, watched boxing. Yesterday, I meal prepped. I didn't do anything this weekend. Very chill. I cleaned my crib.
That's good.
I love like when I have those kinds of weekends where I can just like reset a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Saturday, I sat around because my cousin got engaged this weekend, and Rachel was the photog. So she went out to Virginia.
That's tough.
I got to show you the pictures. She did an awesome job. But yeah, they went out to Virginia to like a winery. And so I was just sitting at home waiting for the word that things went well. Because you're like, which, not that there was any real risk of her not saying yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was, I was just waiting. I was like, I should get a text here shortly. Mission accomplished. And sure enough, we got it. So eventually Rachel came back, hung out at home. Yeah. Congrats to Ben and Monica. Yeah. I'm sure neither of you are listening right now. Ben listens sometimes. But congratulations. Congratulations to my wife on doing an excellent job with the photos. When we get back, Glenn Consor joins us talking Wizards hoops. How did Alex Sarr look in his Summer League debut? We discuss with Glenn next. What's up? What's happening on the final hour of the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And let's talk a little Summer League now. Wizards split their first two games of the weekend. We see some nice flashes from all of the 3 first-round picks. Some nice stuff from some of the other players who we think are going to be interesting for them as well. And a lot more because they played a lot of basketball. And to talk about it all, who else? Who else would we like to talk hoops with other than Glenn Consor? The answer is nobody. The Wizards radio analyst joins us now. Glenn, hello. Happy summer, my friend.
How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm inside. I'm in the air conditioning. I'm neither outdoors in Las Vegas where it is hellishly hot or outdoors here where it is hellishly hot. So I'm great.
That's good to hear. And I'm home in Maryland, and my power went out.
Oh no. Well, I'm glad that we can keep you company here, but I certainly hope that it's very quickly restored for you. There's not a lot I can do for you on that front other than give you well wishes and distract you in the meantime, but I wish you well.
Much needed distraction.
All right, so let's talk a little ball. What did you see from Alex Sarr? I think you see some of the offense, you see some of the defensive flashes. What stood out to you from his first two performances in a quasi-Wizards uniform, the Wizards Summer League uniform?
Well, you can never really tell much from Summer League, first of all. But that being said, what you can tell with Alex is he's long, he's 7'1", 7'2". He's versatile. He's got a high basketball IQ. I like the way he passes. I like his feel. I like the way he defends. He can defend multiple positions. And I like the fact that his shot, he's got a quick release on his jump shot. He looks for his shot, but I really like his IQ. Big guys like him typically, don't put it on the floor as easily as he can, being so young as he is. But he passes well. He's got a feel for where guys are open. A lot of big guys that play the low post, even though he's been playing a lot outside too, because they're letting him learn. They're letting him figure out where he's comfortable, and that's what the Wizards are learning as well. But I like the fact that he reverses the ball. He knows to look weak side. He does all the little things to me that are impressive. And the fact that he could play multiple positions offensively, he can also do that, Craig, defensively because, as the league is mostly pick and roll type offenses. And if you're a big guy that can get out and defend guards coming off the pick and roll where you can switch, those are the things that impress me with him early.
Yeah, no, I think you see all these little glimpses, and you're trying to decide when you're watching a Summer League game, like which of these is real, which of these is he's getting away with it because it's Summer League. And I guess I would ask Glenn, because the other thing with him, when you're scouting him, is he's playing in the Australian League. He's playing at Overtime Elite. The level is just so different. Was there anything, and also what he's asked to do in both of those stops, where we're obviously most of us are watching the tape from on him is very different. So was there anything that he did specifically that you see as translatable to the NBA that maybe you didn't see as you were scouting him throughout this process and getting familiar with him in the month or so or the couple weeks since the Wizards drafted him?
I like how quick he is and how quick he makes decisions. I mean, that's what jumped out at me, and that's all IQ and feel. Yeah. The athleticism is there. Obviously, and he's going to get stronger. I mean, you got to remember that the Wizards, there's a life cycle of all NBA teams. Look, the Celtics just won the championship, and they're going to keep their team and maybe hopefully add some pieces that they want. But the Wizards, they're in a developmental stage right now. They're in a developmental cycle where they're developing culture, they're developing young talent like Bilal. Jordan Poole's still very young. So they're developing all those young players, Corey Kispert, and now they picked up 3 guys that are 18, 19, 20 years old, that it's about making mistakes. It's about figuring out what you can and can't do and what you have to work on.
Glenn Consor, of course, Wizards radio analyst with us here on the Hoffman Show. The guy that really stood out in that first game from a production standpoint, Glenn, of course, was Bub Carrington, first-round pick out of Pitt. What did you see from Carrington in that game, and especially along some of those lines that we just talked about, things that you're like, okay, I feel like this tells me something about him that will translate to the NBA level?
Pick and roll plays, pick and roll offense. My dog obviously agrees with me.
Yeah, he's a very smart analyst. We almost thought about
is.
booking him, Glenn, but we figured your English was a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I know. But he's a baller. I mean, he's a basketball player. You know, he has a great feel to play the pick and roll game. Really knows how to play the pick and roll game with the basketball, coming off screens, playing. I like his feel for the mid-range game. He's impressed me with his three ball too. He's got a nice looking shot. I just think he's another guy, you know, that can defend multiple positions. He probably could defend 1 through 3, and I like the fact that he has really immediately become like a leader on the floor for this team, for the summer league team. And I think that confidence and that understanding of the game is really going to, you know, I think it's going to make him a quick learner in the NBA.
Glenn Consor with us here on the Hoffman Show. Keyshawn George, the other first-round pick, kind of more nondescript the first 2 games, but a guy that filled it up a little bit, that's gotten some run with the Wizards in the last couple of years, but spending most of his time with the Go-Go, is Justin Champagnie. Do you think this is a guy that can make not just the roster, Glenn, but like is he someone that might wind up getting some minutes for this year, this team, or this year for this team when you look at the depth chart and what else they already have at the guard position, or is this just a nice summer league story?
No, I mean, I think he impressed me last year with some of the minutes that he got last year when they moved him up. I tell you what he does really well. He hits the offensive glass. He's got that nice understanding and feel when to crash and, you know, how to rebound. And I like his physicality. He's very athletic. He can make shots. I mean, he could be a surprise player.
Yeah, I think he's going to wind up in the rotation some this year, even if he's a two-way guy again. You know, whether it's in contract or in name. I think it's going to be interesting. Last thing for you, Glenn, on the way out here, you look at some of the moves that have been made. Obviously, there was the Denny trade. You get Malcolm Brogdon back, along with all of the picks. You know, a guy like Jonas Valanciunas comes in for the Wizards when we, you know, look ahead towards training camp in the season. Anything so far this offseason that really stands out that's got you excited about how, you know, we all know this season is not going to be like, oh, they're going to win 50 games. But that gets you excited about where they are in the process in terms of someone who could help some of these young guys along the way.
Yeah, Valanciunas certainly can because he's a big guy that can shoot it. He could play out. He could play in. So, you know, he's going to really help Alex's development, I think. Boy, remember all the years that when he was with Toronto where he just killed the Wizards with his physicality. He's a really good pick and roll player too. I mean, I like him. I like Brogdon. You know, and look, but it's right now for this team, it's about the developing, improving this culture and the individual skill sets of these young players, including Keyshawn George. I like him too. Put it on the floor, an efficient offensive player, quick release, really can shoot it. He's got NBA range now.
Yeah, and shot at 40%, which is just not something a lot of college players do anymore, But he did it last year at Miami. Glenn, always good to chat. Best of luck with your power. Is there anybody we can call? What do we got to do to help you get your power back?
You can call Pepco for me and just mention my name, and they know my address. But the whole area up here is in Rockville is out, and I know you have some juice with Pepco, no pun intended.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you need some juice with Pepco right now. That seems to be the problem. Glenn, always a pleasure, sir. We'll talk to you later in the summer.
You got it.
That is Glenn Consor, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Anthony, do we have Pepco on speed dial for Glenn?
I don't.
Okay, we'll see what we can do. Probably nothing. My guess is they know, and they're working on it. And us saying maybe, hey. If you're a Pepco repairman working in the Rockville area and you listen to this show, I want you to do your absolute best for Glenn Consor because that man deserves it, as do the rest of the fine people, whether they listen or not, in the greater Rockville area. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. ESPN is ranked they've collected the votes. They didn't really do the rankings, which is actually why I'm interested. Every year, Jeremy Fowler polls about 70 NFL executives, coaches, and scouts, and they compile the 10 best players at each position. Their quarterback rankings are fascinating. We'll take a look at them next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. And I always laugh now because we've been constantly updating and upgrading things. And now the way it's supposed to work are the music that people hear on the radio doesn't go through to the YouTube stream anymore, which is how it's supposed to be to avoid copyright issues and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But the people on YouTube see you dancing to the music but can't hear it. The people on the radio hear the rejoin music but can't see you dancing. And I am literally the only person on the planet who gets the full experience. What a treat for me.
The life you deserve, Craig.
Finally. I don't think I've ever heard you use that version of that before. You're always saying, not the life you deserve, man.
I know.
Finally, I get the life I deserve.
I'm proud of you, man.
Boom.
Happy for you.
Whoa, that's a fun headline.
Uh-oh.
Columbia Football Federation president and son amongst 27 people arrested at Sunday's Copa America final.
Good gracious.
All right, then. What a disaster Copa was. We talked about it with Pablo Maurer at 5 o'clock. If you missed it, definitely want to check that out. Also will be part of the best thing that we heard on the show today, I do believe, unless something else happens in the next couple of minutes here. Best thing so far on the show was Pablo at 5 o'clock. Check out the Hoffman Show podcast if you missed it. Anthony, you made a face while I was saying all that. Was there something else that happened?
Nah, it's more so just the fact that the president of the Columbia football team, or football federation, I apologize, was arrested.
Yeah, you just, for me saying it didn't do it, you read it and we're like, wow, no, that really happened.
Yeah, I just needed to hear it and also read it because it's just like, it had that kind of effect.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Like, dang.
I hear you. I had to do a double take on it.
It's getting ridiculous.
Been ridiculous. But again, we talked about that already. All right. The NFL season is nearly upon us. We are almost out of silly season here and list season. But this is when all the good lists come out. And I think Jeremy Fowler at ESPN does one of the coolest lists all year. I actually didn't realize that a lot of them he'd already released. But over the next couple of days are actually the two that I'm most interested in. Today was quarterback. Tomorrow they're doing off-ball linebacker. And I'm curious if Bobby Wagner is still listed as a top 10 linebacker in the eyes of the 70 or so coaches, GMs, personnel executives, and scouts that Jeremy talks to for this. So they anonymously rate the top 10 at every position. They do like a composite ranking. He gets quotes about all these players from certain guys. They say like who, here's the average ranking. They list out the 10. And then they also will be like, this was the lowest this player was ranked. This is the highest this player was ranked. So you get kind of a good feel for all the different guys. But here are the NFL's top 10 quarterbacks according to the panel of people in the league that ESPN's Jeremy Fowler commissioned. At number 10 is the only quarterback in the NFC East. Anthony. Oh, sir, wrong. That's on me.
Number 10
is
Dakota Prescott.
It is. It is not Jalen Hurts. It is Dak Prescott. And that's how it should be. And I've talked about this before, especially with these two guys when we did our rankings on Take Command and any other times we talked about this. Dak has a bigger range of tools in his tool bag that he uses well. Not that he uses every tool as well as Jalen uses a very specific few, but he's just a better overall quarterback than Jalen Hurts, and especially with how the Eagles finished the year last year, that shouldn't even be controversial. Because even though Dak had a couple of obviously disastrous picks in that playoff game, like, he still threw for damn near 400 yards by the end of it. Like, he just continued to fight and battle. And, if that game was somehow a 75-minute Super Bowl, extra deluxe game instead of, I don't even know what that means, instead of a regular 60-minute game, like, that thing was getting closer by the end. It's just they started so bad. And obviously Dak has had a couple of those in the playoffs. But game in, game out consistency, like Dak is 10 is, or even higher, honestly, is definitely right for Dak. I'm happy to see this guy at number 9.
Number 9.
It's Jared Goff. I think Goff is underrated. at this point. I think people see him as kind of a middle-of-the-pack guy, and he's a former number 1 overall pick with a monster arm, good leadership moxie. He runs what they want him to run, and yeah, could you upgrade on him? I guess, but I wouldn't be in a rush to. I wouldn't be in a rush to pay him $70 million, but at his current deal, let him at least play this one out if you're Detroit. I'm happy for Jared Goff to see him at number 9, and I don't know that there's nobody that's either not on this list or Dak Prescott below him at 10 that I would sub him with for this year.
I like him where he is as well. The only thing that does concern me about Goff is when you move him off his mark. That's it.
For sure. But he also plays behind arguably the best offensive line in the league.
That helps a lot.
Does certainly help.
Number 8
is Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what you say about him. If he's Aaron Rodgers, then yeah, he's going to top 10 quarterback in the league. If he's not as mobile as he used to be, not quite as fast, his timing is off because he's been out a year, we'll see. And we'll see about the circus that has kind of been around him since he's been at the Jets.
Number 7
CJ Stroud. Yeah, he was awesome last year. What more do you want to say?
Number 6
Justin Herbert. Herbert's interesting because from a talent standpoint, this is obviously correct. He's huge. He has great mobility. He is a very even keel to the point that sometimes people say he's robotic as a negative. But he's still, if you could put him in Houston for this year, Houston's ceiling goes up, which is why he's above Stroud. Now, 3 years from now, would I say that? No. Is it possible that statement looks silly by the end of the year because of how good Stroud was? Maybe, but that's more about Stroud than it is Herbert. I still believe in Justin Herbert quite a bit. And, dude, Harbaugh just has a way. There is never lag time. I was listening to Mina Kimes' podcast, and Kyle Brandt was on. They do what's called the Power Hour, and they rank every single team, and it starts with Mina giving 2 teams. They did this around the draft, too. We talked about a similar concept that Mina show and some of the interesting discussions they had. But she gives 2 teams, and she'll be like, all right, the best team in the NFL is 49ers, Chiefs. Okay, now 49ers, I give you the Ravens, 49ers. And they keep going that. And they didn't get to the Chargers till the 20s, and Kyle's like, I would have had them in the top 10. Because I don't know how, but he literally goes, that psychopath they have as a head coach always wins. And it's the first year. It's just what they do. So the Chargers might be the most fascinating team in the entire NFL.
Number 5
Stafford. Look what he did last year. He's still him.
Number 4
Lamar, again, no explanation.
Number 3
Josh Allen.
Number 2
Joe Burrow.
Number 1
Duh. Patty Mahomes. The fact that Burrow is ranked above Allen is genuinely fascinating. I think we should get into that next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. Anthony, I gotta remember to bring in my other pair of headphones or figure out, because I legitimately have no idea. Whoever stole my headphones, you win. Congratulations. They're gone. The ones that I had here.
Yeah, I don't know. I really thought they would have turned up by now, but
Same.
Somebody clearly.
Congrats to whatever terrible thief. The only reason I'm not willing to go even harder is because there's still a chance that I did something dumb. That in 2 months I find them somewhere and I'm like, oh, I'm the idiot. I can't get that possibility out of my head. But I've been using these backup headphones that are in here, and the cord is definitely loose. So,
and can you only hear out of one?
I can only hear out of one, and inevitably, it sounds like it cuts out sometimes. So that's that, and I know at this point it's the headphones. It's not. Yeah. It's not it. So I'm gonna have to order a new pair.
That's definitely concerning.
It's not ideal. Good news is Amazon delivers quickly. Still to come, the best thing from the show today, and real things real people said into real microphones. But I think this is pretty fascinating, actually. ESPN does their annual rankings where it's Jeremy Fowler who puts them together. But it is the top 10 at every position group for the season. And he does this by talking to, it's like 70 NFL personnel people. So it's coaches, it's coordinators, it's scouting directors, it's all this stuff. And so Mahomes is one. Somebody ranked him 2. That person should immediately be outed and fired.
You know who they put? You know who they voted to be the best quarterback in the NFL?
Who is that? I'm trying to see who else had the number one vote.
It was only one.
Yeah, so I'm continuing to scroll down. Did someone put Rodgers number 1?
No. Somebody put Josh Allen number 1.
I can at least make that argument.
I can't.
It's wrong.
Okay.
But oh yeah, there it is. Highest ranking 1. But if you want to say Josh Allen he's got a bigger arm, he's a bigger body, he's a bigger threat as a runner, and if you gave him Andy Reid and Travis Kelce, he would be just as good or better than Mahomes. I would tell you you're wrong, and that there's certain things about Mahomes' decision-making specifically being the big one there, but I, at least from a physical tool standpoint, would understand the argument. Again, do I agree with it? No. And do I think that person probably has Mahomes? Obviously, they said the lowest ranking was 2, so that person has Mahomes second. But considering the results, I just don't understand how you could possibly put the fact that Mahomes always figures out how to make a play and make the right play and win, in the biggest moments. I just don't understand how you wouldn't have Mahomes. I think that the fascinating one is Burrow over Allen. So here's what the article says. Burrow hasn't exactly hurt his standing in the Pantheon since last year's voting. He's still considered one of the game's very best and won a close race for number 2, but his growing injury file has planted a seed of doubt. He played conservatively early in the season while managing the calf strain and the wrist injury suffered in November. Burrow had surgery to repair the torn ligament, but is participating in off-season workouts, and the early returns are good, blah, blah, blah. High level in all areas, can't stay healthy, said an AFC scout. No Mixon and T. Higgins holding out are big concerns. There's a little debate around Burrow's greatness, and when he's healthy, spinning it, his career completion percentage of 68% is the highest in NFL history through a player's first 4 seasons with a minimum of 1,000 attempts. A veteran NFC offensive coach said baller, release, decision-making, tough as nails, 1 play away already from having a ring, and young, so the injury not as concerning. So that is the Burrow file. Allen, here's the write-up on Allen. Allen's blend of brilliance and inconsistency has left voters with mixed feelings. He received the only first-place vote that didn't go to Mahomes. He is Mahomes' neighbor in style of play, but lives on a different street of accomplishment. He's been in the top 5 for 4 consecutive seasons, but hasn't cracked the top 2. Most would agree Allen should have experienced more playoff success by now. He leaves you wanting a little bit more, an AFC executive said. If you're picking who you want to have lead your team, he's going to be second or third for most people. The ceiling is still really high, etc., etc. Here would be my question for putting Josh Allen behind Joe Burrow. One, the inconsistency, quote unquote, of Josh Allen versus the inconsistency of availability of Joe Burrow. Which one would you rather deal with? Because I'd rather deal with Allen. I'd rather have a dude who may have a wacky off game here or there, but ultimately is probably going to play every single week and will play through a ton of pain. Like last year, late in the year, he was playing through, I think it was a back injury, and he still played pretty well. Like there was a stretch definitely where his play fell off. He went in December, 233 yards in a win over the Chiefs. The Dallas game, he only threw for 94 yards, but they won 31-10. The Chargers game, he threw for 237. New England, 169. And then Miami, he threw for 359. But in those games, they won every single one of them. So he did enough to win, whatever that's worth. He found a way to make plays at the right time. And I just think that his upside and the relative consistency, I mean, he threw for 4,300 yards last year. It's not like his completion percentage is 52. It was 66.5. He went 29 touchdowns, 18 picks. Like, I love Burrow, but I would take Allen. And I'm surprised that considering the season the last two had, where Allen was in the MVP mix late in the year and Burrow was nowhere to be seen because he was hurt, that it's still number 2 for Allen and number 3 for Allen, number 2 for Burrow.
I think I'm going with Joe Burrow in this conversation. And it's primarily because of the big moments. I feel like there was one legitimate, one big moment Josh Allen actually lived up to the moment, and that was when KC and the Bills were going back and back. They scored 4 times in 2 minutes. It was something.
Was that the 14-second game you're talking about? Where
Yeah.
Mahomes they left too much time for
13
Mahomes?
seconds.
Yeah, 13 seconds. But I feel like there's been multiple games like that where Allen is balled in big spots. I bet you his playoff numbers, if I haven't looked, I'm going to pull them up right now.
I was about to say, that's more so what I'm looking at. And I feel like in a big moment where Joe Burrow actually beats Patrick Mahomes, not a lot of people can say they beat Patrick Mahomes.
No,
in the
he's
playoffs.
the only one.
Yeah.
I think literally him and Brady in the Super Bowl.
Yep. And then, Brady in the Super Bowl. Him and Brady. And Brady in
New England.
New England.
But which shouldn't have happened because that was the D4 game.
Yeah. So those are the moments I'm looking at. And I feel like when Joe Burrow is healthy, that Bengals offense is one to be, reckoned with. It sucks that he did get hurt. He did battle injuries all last season. But 2021 and 2022, he looked good. He was, in the conversation to.
I'm not telling you
the
that Joe
MVP.
Burrow's not awesome.
Oh no, I'm just saying I would still rather have him over a healthy Joe Burrow. I would rather have over Josh Allen is all I'm saying. And you brought up the health thing. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is on his list.
He was 8th.
Yeah, if we're not talking about health though.
Yeah. So here's Josh Allen's playoff numbers. He's 5-5 record-wise, which is obviously not ideal. But in those games, he's 244 for 378. So that's a basically 65% completion percentage for 2,700 yards, 21 touchdowns to 4 picks in the playoffs. He averages 7 yards a rush in the playoffs. So average 6.7 yards a rush in the playoffs. He's got another 5 rushing touchdowns. So total playoff production, 26 touchdowns, 21 through the air, 5 on the ground, 4 picks for Josh Allen. Now, he does have a decent number of fumbles, so there have been some turnover issues. 1, Why does it? But actually, no. He says he's got 9. He had the 1-3 fumble game, and he had 4 early in his career. And then the 3 fumble game was the game that they won against Miami. Yeah, the game they won against Miami before losing to Burrow in 2022. So, yeah, he's got some fumbles, but only 4 picks. Like
He lost to Burrow?
in 2022, it's 2024.
And so they
You
didn't
still want Tom Brady? He's retired.
All I'm saying is a healthy Joe Burrow
The answer,
versus
by the way,
a
is
healthy
yes.
Josh Allen.
Sure, but we don't know that.
Yeah.
Burrow got hurt in camp last year with a calf strain, just like,
And he was battling.
yeah, doing nothing. Not doing nothing, but like participating in drill. It wasn't like he got hit or anything. The wrist injury was unlucky. That one, I think he hit his hand on a helmet or whatever. Or maybe it just happened on a throw, but like his body has not been kind to him. Allen treats his body like like the thing I'd be scared about with Allen is like, when does the Cam Newton thing happen to him?
Yeah.
When does he just be like, okay, I'm done?
I'm excited to see Josh Allen, though. This year, especially to the voter that voted Josh Allen the best quarterback in the league. I think I'm excited to see what Josh Allen can do for the receivers that, he'll have this season, just because he won't have a Gabe Davis. He won't have a Stephon Diggs. Can he, help and bring out the best in the young receivers that he has at his expense now?
He's got Curtis Samuel, though.
He does have Curtis.
Which, what more could you want in life than Curtis Samuel?
We'll see how Josh Allen turns out this season.
I think he's going to do just fine.
Okay.
I think he's going to do just
I'm
fine.
not
We'll
drafting
see if he's
him
better
in
than
fantasy
Burrow.
football today. This year. I would
Really?
No. Would not be
I
taking
got to see. Oh, that's something else we got to do before. We can do that when I get back from Paris.
Yeah.
Do the Hoffman Show Fantasy League.
Got to.
Got to. All right. When we get back, we wrap up the show here on the Team 980. right, final segment of the Hoffman Show. We got like 6-7 minutes left where we hand things over to BetMGM tonight here on the Team 980. And this is the part of the show where we tell you all the things you missed if you're just joining us, or you're like, hey, I joined it when I got in my car. I work late, relatively speaking. I don't know what late is anymore. I work till 7. Point is, we tell you all the things we did on the show today, including the best thing on the show today. What I will tell you before we get to the best thing was, this was pretty good. I actually really liked this. The execution. We did a good job. We had a good plan. We executed well, Anthony. Top 10 most important commanders of the 2024 season. We are doing that every single day at 4:30. So if this is more your time to listen, definitely check out the Hoffman Show podcast. I'm actually going to make sure I tweet out the link to that every single day. So if you want that, even if you're not like a Twitter user, you can just go to twitter.com/@CraigHoffman and it'll be there, or search the Hoffman Show in your favorite podcast app. Or if you're not a podcast listener, use Apple Podcasts or Spotify or the free Odyssey app, whichever one you want. They're all pretty easy to use, and just search the Hoffman Show. And then that podcast, the podcast of that segment, I should say, is already up, or listen to the full first hour of the show. Anthony has put that all up there for you. So check that out wherever you get your pods. Best thing on the show today, Anthony, I thought this was a pretty funny exchange that we had with Pablo Maurer of The Athletic, who we had to talk on about the absolute disgusting disaster that was the Copa America final last night in Miami. And Pablo was angry as someone who loves the sport and loves the game, and I get it. But anger is not something we ever do on sports radio, right?
I hate to get animated about it, but the entire tournament was such a disgrace, and it shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
That it's hard not to get angry about it, honestly.
No, it's worth anger, Pablo. Like I'm right there with you. I'm trying to do my best to just ask you questions and let your expertise come through here and ask them in a non-leading way. Because Sports Talk Radio, as you know, is a bastion of journalism. That's what we do here. But
I don't think there's ever been any anger on Sports Talk Radio either.
No, never, none.
This is new for you guys. I know, but
our audience is like, "What is? Whoa, settle down, guy." No, but like
normally when you have anger and you're talking about soccer, it's one of your listeners saying, "Stop talking about soccer." I'm sure.
Well, there is that. It's good. That's funny. It's a good bit. I don't know what happened at the end of the file there, Anthony, but. It's good, funny little bit that we did.
Oh no, I cut it off because it was going to be going to.
No, I know, but like it sounded like when I played it froze.
Really?
It got stuck at the end. You didn't hear that? I don't think that was just in my headphones. It sounded like in Price is Right, when they play the big spinning wheel at the end. It sounded like just when they start that it was like. But no, actually before that. When it was like, yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Oh. Maybe I just knew where it was going to end, so it didn't sound too.
I don't know. I don't think it was something that you did. I think there was an error on my player.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that if you heard that. And if you didn't, and it was just me, I'm sorry that I seem like a crazy person. Anyway, the full chat with Pablo was at 5 o'clock today. So rewind in the Odyssey app or check out the Hoffman Show podcast for that. After that, we wrap up the show after the best thing we heard all day with real things where people said in real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11. Not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
I loved this clip so much because it's genuinely hysterical. People, this is not going to help the... hey, stop talking about soccer crowd. But specifically that word, soccer, where does it come from? The Red Handed podcast, which is a murder mystery podcast about British people, hosted by 2 British people. I don't know why they got on this subject, but this came across my Instagram timeline. I thought it was hilarious, and I wanted to share with you, the audience.
Would you say soccer or would you say football? Football, because you are correct. A true red-blooded British lady. Did you know the word soccer was actually coined by none other than the English? Are you prepared for the etymological history of the word soccer?
Yes, I am, but I'm mad about it.
We English, we love shortening words.
We do. Yeah.
Unnecessarily. So let me take you back to the 1800s. Association football, as it was called, was shortened to just ASSOC. So people start saying ASSOC. And in the late 1800s in England, particularly in Oxford, there was a fad of adding the word to the end of some words. Thus, as soccer was born here in England. It was about this same time, so in the 1800s, that football, as we know it, was growing in popularity across the pond. Already in America, though, was the popular sport American football. That already existed. So the term soccer was adopted because they were like, that makes sense. But then we dropped the term. We dropped the slang term soccer. We stopped using it in the mid-20th century and we started saying football again, but nobody told the Americans. So we spread it over there. We changed the rules. We didn't tell them, and now we laugh at them when they call it soccer. So there you go.
Wow, that's thoroughly unpleasant.
They pulled the old switcheroo on us, Anthony.
Switcheroo.
What accent was that?
Not English.
No. No, laddie. No, laddie, it was not. I never knew that. I knew that it actually, that there was more used in Britain than the British would ever want to admit. Didn't know that was the etymology. We learned something, which means we can end the show now. Do it again tomorrow.